Welcome back to the Play by Play podcast. This is episode number 46, where today we will be looking at a 2024 2025 preview of the college basketball men's team of the New Mexico State Aggies, which, if you do not know, is the school that I attend all the way down in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I want to thank you guys so much for your support on the podcast. I want to thank you guys for getting us to 1,000 views on the podcast on all streaming services. That includes Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you guys so much. It is a tremendous milestone that I am super, super blessed to accomplish. And I hope that we will continue to improve and grow this brand going down the road. If you are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you have not already, always, please feel free to follow us on all social medias, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So not only you can see my instant reactions to recent breaking news in the sports world, but also you cannot miss when the podcast is uploaded, whether it being full episodes or bonus clips. There is a bar popping up right here. And of course, like always, all of the ads are down below in the description. So without further ado, the 2024-2025 preview, the New Mexico State Aggies, starts right now. So when it comes to the New Mexico State Aggies last year, one of the important things to look at is how the team performed last year when it compares to the rest of the country. Now, keep in mind, in Division I college basketball, there are 355 teams across the country competing every single year. So when you look at these rankings going forward, looking at the Aggies, just take the number outside of 355. So obviously, if you're looking at a number of 320 to 330, you're obviously in the bottom 30 or 40 teams in the country. And of course, if you're looking anywhere from 1 through 40, you're in the top 40 of the top teams in the country. But I want to start with this because this is the 2021-2022 New Mexico State Aggies season, where they ended up beating UConn in the first round and ended up losing to Arkansas in the second round. Of course, it was the Teddy Allen run. I just want to look at some of their per game team numbers that they had and the ranking numbers that they had going across the board. This one is going to be a big one right here, and that is points, averaging 72.5 points on the season. Not terrible at all. They were ranked 140 that year. That is about half. You're about in the top half of the teams in the country, which is solid. It's where you want to be, and it's a very solid spot to be when you're not in a Power 5 conference. Of course, this year they were in the WAC conference. Nowadays they're in the Conference USA conference. You look at assist numbers, they were averaging 13.7. Once again, they're in the top half of the country in that. Total rebounds, they actually ranked 43rd in total rebounds that year. Very, very impressive. You look over at potentially field goal percentage. They're in the top 100 in field goal percentage. So they were shooting well, they were passing the ball around, making solid plays, finding the open man, and finishing plays, which is very, very important. When you look at opposing teams, sure, they did give up a certain amount of points. You have 64.6 points there, but still winning by an average of 8 to 10 points per game. It is not a bad look at all. And when you look back down at some of the players that they have, more specifically, once again, looking towards the point totals, you obviously have Teddy Allen highlighting it at nearly 20 points per game average. That's a great mark. Saad Jabari Rice right behind him at 12 points per game. Let's look at rebounds total. You're looking at about 7 average for Teddy Allen. Assist numbers, Sir Jabari Ross at 3 assists per game. Let's look at field goal percentages. You have Teddy Allen once again at 43%, but you also have guys like Nate Pryor at 55. You have Johnny McCants down here at 51%. If we look at 3-point percentage, you have people on the upwards of 40%. So just very, very efficient numbers from this year's Aggies team. And it was one of the reasons why they were able to have so much success, not just in their conference. They did finish 3rd in their conference that year, but in the NCAA tournament. So take a look at these numbers, memorize it, go back if you have to, just take a look at it And now I want to compare it to last year's Aggie team. Of course, they had pretty much a complete rebuild, completely cleared the team after certain allegations were made within the program, completely new coach this season. So you do have to put that into consideration. But let's take a look at this. You see, they scored 5 less points this past season than that 2021 team. And now that may not seem like a huge difference, but that dropped them all the way down to 316th in the nation. You take a look at assists, they're down once again in that bottom 40 range at 319th. You look at total rebounds, they dropped all the way down. I believe they were top 100 or at least in the mid hundreds. They're at 276. You take a look at field goal percentage, nearly hit the 300 mark in ranked this past season. 3-point percentage, 243rd. And you might see a lot of these stats, you might flip back and forth and say that there's not a huge difference, but it was enough. And you have to put into consideration that they were in a weaker conference this year, and the Conference USA is definitely a much weaker conference than the WAC. In fact, there was only one team in all of the Conference USA that ended up making it to the NCAA tournament this past year, and that was Western Kentucky, who won the conference tournament. You take a look at some of their opponents' ranking. I mean, they gave up 72 points per game. They ranked 200th in that in the country. So they went from a +8 margin all the way back in 2021 to now giving up 5 points in each of their games. And if you really look at their scoring numbers, I'm actually going to flip to this tab because it just shows a little better of a view here. You know, we saw Teddy Allen average 20 points per game. We saw Sir-Jabari Rice right behind there at around 11. This year, their top scorer was Christian Cook, averaging at top 11 points per game. You saw field goal percentage. You saw that there was some guys looking towards 50, 40%. Of course, you're going to have the bigs here topping 50%, but from there, just not a lot of efficiency. Christian Cook, their top scorer, only averaged 40% from the field this past year. Jalen Jackson Posey was one of their top guards as well, just under 40%. If you take a look at 3-point percentage of some of their best shooters, their best 3-point percentage shooter did not even shoot over 40% last year. Rebounds, huge issue for them. Didn't have anybody over at least 7 rebounds this past year. Only have two guys, I apologize, in the 3 assist margin. So you can see it was just a huge downgrade this past season. I don't think that really has to do much with the player's skill. Of course, a team like this that was kind of just brought together last minute is going to need to take time to build chemistry with each other. But you also have to understand that these numbers are going to have to be a lot better. Some of these statistics are nearly going to have to double from where they are this past year to even go on to match that 2021, 2022 number. And one thing that you really have to keep in mind is this guy right here is gone right here. Femi Adukale went over to Minnesota University, transferring over this year. And he was somebody that was really important in their rotation this past year. Somebody who came on about mid to late season, around December, January time, and was able to fill in the starting lineup and was a really solid box guy for them. What I mean by that is he was a really great guy that did a solid job around the rim, rebounded very well, was solid in post defense, was a guy that they looked at to potentially guard some of the best offensive wings on the opposing teams. He got rebounds. He was a great defender, as you can see, topped the team in steals and blocks. He's no longer here. So you're going to have to fill that void of him not being here. We're going to go to some of the guys that they picked up here in a minute, but you're also going to have to get behind the fact that you don't have Jalen Jackson Posey anymore. He was one of their top guards that they were expecting to break out last year. He is now gone. I believe Jonathan Kanyanga was their starting big last year. He is no longer here. So there are a couple of spots that they are going to have to fill to potentially see an increase in numbers. Now, who are those guys? Who are guys that they are going to be looking at this year, who have transferred over, who they recruited, that you're going to potentially see in their lineup trying to make up a spark? You start off with Deontay Bostic, a 4-year Division I basketball player. Started all 34 games last year for Cal State Northridge, a smaller Division I school that is in the Big West. A couple things that you want to highlight here, of course, is the 15.4 points per game. Of course, that is larger than any average of New Mexico State's top guards this previous year. 4.0 rebounds is incredible, especially as a 6'2" guard. And probably even most important, shooting at around 45%, which again is higher than anybody on New Mexico State's team from last year. Was second in scoring for Cal State Northridge this previous season. Like I said, started all 34 games, was at Murray State 2 years before transferring over to Cal State Northridge, so has some experience in bigger conferences. Maybe a little bit of a concern is looking at that he has upwards of 2 turnovers in his past 2 years when playing Division One basketball, but with the fast pace that he plays at, with the fact that you look at the fact that he is great in transition, which is where New Mexico State got a lot of their success last year. They were much better forcing turnovers, getting defensive rebounds, and getting down the court quickly. That is what he excels at. He excels at getting into a lane, running it, grabbing the ball, and attacking the rim. He excels at going downhill off the dribble, creating separation, and getting to the rim. And he also, despite him only having a 34% three-point percentage, he also shows ability to be a really solid catch and shoot guard, which is something that they were lacking last year outside of somebody like Christian Cook. And the key here for New Mexico is, yes, Christian Cook was really solid last year, but he's not somebody, in my opinion, that you would look to be your lead guard. He's not somebody, in my opinion, that I would look to potentially be in a Teddy Allen position where you would look to him to score 18, 19, 20 points, where you would look for him to have the ball in his hands for the entire game. You need somebody to be able to make plays for you. And if you could potentially slide Chris Cook over and potentially put him in a more playmaking spot off the ball, catching and shooting a lot more, I think you would find a lot more success. I think the offense would flow a lot better, and I think that you would see a lot of these other guys on the perimeter making more plays. And I think that Deontay Bostic is a start there. You move on to another one of their pickups right here. This guy right here, Peter Filopovic from Hungary, played at the University of Maine last year, another Division One college. You can see 14.4 points from him. Leads the New Mexico State Aggies, the averages that they had last year. Led the University of Maine in scoring last year. 7.6 rebounds, 56.2%, which ranked him 40th from the field last year in all of Division One basketball. And the thing that I love about his game is, once again, he shows a similar ability to what Femi had last year, where he is that box forward. He has a guy that shows a lot of strength and athleticism, a guy who shows ability to guard the best player on the court, whether it is down low in the box or on the perimeter, somebody who is a very solid rebounder on both sides of the floor, somebody who does a really great job handling the ball, getting to the rim, and making plays to his teammates, rebounding the ball and getting putbacks, getting second chance points for his team. So he is somebody that I would look towards this year to potentially fill in that Femi spot that they are going to be missing, where he's just all around the court making plays. Now, of course, he does have some shooting deficiencies, only 24% from the three-point line. I believe if we look at Femi's, which he wasn't even a great three-point shooter himself, if we take a look at this, shooting 31%. So there's a lot of similarities there between these two. Of course, his three-point efficiency is going to decrease the efficiency of the team from the outside, but he is somebody who is going to be a really solid utility player who could fill in at the 3, 4, 5, who could potentially guard all 5 positions on the court, and is going to be somebody who, if he can continue to score at a higher level, such as Deontay Bostic, if those two can bring up the efficiency when coming up to a better competitive division, they are guys that could easily fill in spots in that starting lineup. If these two work out, you could have a starting lineup of Bostic, Chris Cook. You could put Filopovic in there at the 4. You have Carpenter at the 5, and then you could throw any other real guard that you have in there. Jaden Harris, what was a really solid spark for them for the length of the season. I know him and Christian Cook have a lot of really solid chemistry. They have other players that are coming in. They have some returners as well, such as where is he at right here? Such as Brandon Suggs, who only played 13 games last year. We're looking for him to be a spark. But you have options, and that's the key here when you're building a program is to bring guys in that is going to be able to expand your lineup, expand your rotation, fill in spots, and give more opportunities to players across the board. And these two specifically are going to be guys that are going to be very efficient in scoring, that are very efficient in playing the exact play style that New Mexico State likes to play, which is getting stops, getting defensive rebounds, going down the length of the court in transition, and scoring easy buckets. And these are two guys that I believe also could help them in their defensive efficiencies. As we said, if you look back at this 2021 team, they were holding teams to 64 points per game. They were averaging 12 turnovers. The opposing teams were averaging 12 turnovers, under 40% from the field, under 30%, or just at 30% from the three-point line. And I mean, look at these rankings. 11th ranking right here for the field goal percentage, 28th for three-point percentage, 43rd in points. These are very, very high rankings for a very solid defense from New Mexico State in 2021. And once again, when we go back to this 2023 map, you see them getting into these mid-hundreds with points. Oh, I apologize, that's not the right stat. You see them getting right at 200 for points. If you look at three-point percentage, 223rd. Field goal percentage, still pretty solid, looking at 70th, but still not the same as it was in 2021. These two additions are guys that are going to help a ton when it comes to upgrading this defense. And these are two guys that could potentially top the scoring averaging list at New Mexico State this season. This is another guy that they added this past year, Carl Cherenfant. There is not a whole lot of film on him this past year because he only played 18 games out of, I believe, 34 games that Memphis had this season. He did not hold a huge role in Penny Hardaway's rotation, but 6'5", another really lengthy, solid guard, somebody that, again, you might potentially look at to just be a lengthy, very solid defender and help bring down points of the opposing team. That could be really solid. Look for him to potentially bring a spark. And finally, the guy that I'm most excited for, is the three-star out of Arizona, Gabe Pickens. Now, of course, he's only a freshman guard. It's not guaranteed that he's going to get a lot, if any, playing time whatsoever in this rotation. But when you look at this guy's game in high school, the fact that he was considered for the McDonald's All-American in the state of Arizona, I believe he was it says here, I believe he was 28th best player in Arizona, and the 38th best point guard in the 2024 recruiting class. The man can get buckets. The man does exactly the same things that we see out of guys such as Deonte Bostic, where he plays at his pace, does not get sped up, does not get slowed down by defenders approaching him, trapping him possibly, does not turn over the ball a lot, loves attacking the rim, has a really broad frame with very, very broad shoulders, has strength in those shoulders that allows him to go body to body with the defender when driving to the basket, push off and gain separation from power dribbles, from power stops, stopping on that block and extending up and making that layup, which is great. The only negative opinion that I potentially have on him is there is not a lot of shooting film from him. There are a couple of clips of him shooting the basketball. A lot of them he makes really solid moves. Like there were a couple clips of him making some really solid step backs and getting some separation there. There's not a whole lot there. So I'm not really certain how great his shooting ability is. But again, when you're a program, especially a college program, especially a program that is in a rebuild, you are looking towards the future. Now, this is not guaranteed. The transfer portal is very finicky. He could easily transfer out after this year, after potentially redshirting even. But if he decides to stay, this is a guy that after guys such as Jaden Harris, Christian Cook leaves, Deonte Bostic, if this is his final year, this is the guy who could be the future of New Mexico State's backcourt. This is a guy that in year 3, year 4, could be somebody like Teddy Allen, leading this team into a March Madness spot and potentially putting them into the round of 32, maybe even the Sweet 16, if they could ever get back to that potential, and if they could put solid players around him as a program, and if coaching can improve. So those are some of the really, really solid improvements that we are seeing from them this past offseason. Now, what I want to see from current players this next season, Christian Cook, would love to see him take the next step in his offensive game. Would love to see him become more efficient from beyond the arc, attacking a lot more, establishing this as his team. He is the lead guard. He is a senior starting guard this year. He knows the ways of Coach Hooten. He was a starter for pretty much the entire season last year. He needs to lead this team, and I'm very excited to see what he has this year. I'm very excited to see what comes out of Robert Carpenter this year. He is going to be their main big man of choice. He is going to be the guy that is going to have to control the rim protection on the defensive side. That is going to be under his control. Now, he shows some really solid athleticism, so hopefully he can live up to that. And then on the offensive side, of course, you're going to look for him to do what a big man does in the block, have solid post game, make layups when he has the opportunity, be in the dunker spot, be ready to go up easily and take contact, be there. And Jaden Harris do a lot of the similar things that he did last year, which is providing a spark, keeping the chemistry with Christian Cook in that backcourt, and again, just becoming more efficient, doing a lot more on offense, getting out in transition once again like they did last year. That is what this team is going to need to do if they want to continue to be successful, especially in the Conference USA. And the great thing is, once again, it's not a hugely competitive conference. If you really look at the teams from last year, you're only really having to worry about 2, maybe 3 teams in all of the conference. Sam Houston, Louisiana Tech top the conference at number 1 and number 2. And then, of course, like we talked about, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, who have been a pretty big powerhouse the past couple of years, won the Conference USA tournament and were able to make it to March Madness. They are going to be guys. They have a very great recruitment. They always have recruits coming in and out. They're always a heavily spot. Actually, Jordan Rawls, who played last year for New Mexico State, transferred to New Mexico State from Western Kentucky. So they are a program of destination for recruits, for transfers. There are people wanting to go to Western Kentucky, and they are always really, really talented. Making the March Madness tournament is obviously going to give that program some much needed experience. It's going to help the current players that are returning. It is going to help the coaches that are on that staff. They are going to be a challenge for New Mexico State. But outside of that, there's not much to worry about. Now, of course, they have to look to putting away the easy teams, such as Middle Tennessee, FIU. UTEP wasn't very great. And I believe they split games with UTEP this previous season. They're going to have to look to sweep those teams. They're going to look to possibly split with Liberty this past season, who ranked ahead of them in the conference. So those are the teams that they're really looking out for. Really just those top 2. Western Kentucky, Sam Houston, and Louisiana Tech, all that topped it. They need to potentially rise up the standings and compete with those teams. Can they do it? Yes. I think they got some really, really solid transfers. I think the players that they're returning from the previous year are going to take the next step, are going to be able to develop their game a lot more, and they're going to be able to lead this team and become the stars of this team. But it is going to start with how they approach this game. If they want to go out and they want to be a bottom 300 team in the country in points and in efficiency, if they want to just rely on purely their transition, then they can do that, and they're going to have a very, very similar season to last year. But if they can not only get out in transition, but play well in the half court, if they can improve their efficiency from the outside, if the players that they picked up can lean into the game plan that they have, if guys such as Peter Filipovic can go ahead and guard some of the best players on the wing, if Chris Cook can rise up and be not Teddy Allen, but close to Teddy Allen, possibly rise up into the 15, 16-point averages, they are going to be looking at a really solid season where they could compete for a spot in the March Madness tournament. But they're going to have to take a step. It's going to be baby steps slowly, because this program is still rebuilding. This is still a ragtag bunch of small group guys coming together that they're trying to recruit. They're trying to build this program from the bottom up. It's going to be challenging, but I think that they added the right pieces this year, And again, if the remaining pieces can continue to improve, they are going to be good this year. That's all I have for today for you guys. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this episode. Let me know what you think. If you go to New Mexico State, what are your thoughts on the team this year? What are your thoughts on some of the things that I said today? Am I right? Am I wrong? Do we have any potential record predictions or maybe conference standing predictions that any of you guys have? If you have any of those predictions, any comments whatsoever, leave them down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, once again, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, please feel free to follow us on all social medias. Of course, bar always popping up right here. All of the ads of TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, they will also all be down below. Go ahead and follow them so that you can never miss a notification for when the podcast posts. And with all that said, my name is David Gallegos. This was my 2024-2025 New Mexico State Aggies men's basketball preview. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.